In today's show, Danny Marang is back on the program, and we talk about the youngsters. Scoot Mania, Shaedon Sharpe. What's the deal with Rayan Rupert? What about Jabari Walker? We'll touch on all of it. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazer reporter, Mike Richmond. Let's do another episode of Locked On Blazers. And I may have, and through the magic of editing, you don't know this, but I did maybe screw up my intro, but that doesn't matter because we're still chatting here with Danny Marang. You've heard him on Danny and Dusty, 12 to 3 on 1080 The Fan on your radio dial here in Portland. You've heard him on Jacked Ramsays. Today, we're going to talk all things youngsters. That's right. The Blazers have a fun young core. It's not all just Damian Lillard, doom and gloom. It's the young folks. So I want to talk about Scoot Henderson. I want to talk about Shaedon Sharpe. And I want to talk about just the rest of the youngsters on the roster. Danny, you were there. You were in Vegas. And you saw 21 glorious minutes from my man, Sterling Henderson, Scoot Great himself. Name. Such a good name. His dad was so cool. Except for I talked about this on, I was on Locked On Fantasy Basketball, and Josh Lloyd mentioned this. One of the kids is named CJ. He's Charles Jr. He kind of got ripped off. Everyone else has a cool name. Everyone else has a great name. Yeah, Onyx and Jade and Sterling and Pearl and CJ. Come on. I'd be mad. But Scoot, Scoot, in 21 minutes, what did you see and where is your excitement level after 21 minutes in Vegas?
So holistically with Scoot, it started off with the December, matchup in Vegas against Victor Wembanyama, right? And him jumping up and banging on a 7'5" guy. And it was like, oh, okay. But then I start talking to scouts and he's super athletic. It's like Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook. And I'm like, he's like that? Like, I've watched him a little bit. I've never really noticed that. And it kind of started to run its way back. And I was like, no, he's super athletic though. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, but we're not talking like 0.1% athletes in NBA history type of stuff. Okay, that's fine. And then I got to kind of see him in person, during Summer League and finding that safe spot in between. The thing about him that stood out was his control and the ball manipulation. The dude has hands like Kawhi Leonard. They're dinner plates. And Dame's got a tight handle, but Dame's not a deep bag guy. He is a footwork savant.
Yeah, power and go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and his ability to change direction and create space. Like Dame's step back might be the most ridiculous shot creation tool for a small guard or a smaller player in NBA history. He gets like 8 feet of separation when he kicks that 45-degree out. It's like, good luck. Like you never see it get blocked, even by the Anthony Davises of the world. Scoot's kind of skill is he looks like he's drunk with the ball, and you're like, oh, I could go get that, and he just goes and pulls it back on you, makes you look very stupid. Shout out Amen Thompson, who got his ankle snatched twice, and it was like, oh God. That's not normal. Like you could see him and he does that push dribble through traffic and there's a level of control that 7-8 players in the NBA have. Like Kyrie is up there. I'd put CJ up there, but CJ's more handle than as opposed to like just LaMelo Ball. His handle's not obscene, but his ability to just push the ball through tight spaces with very long arms is very unique. Scoot is like that. He just has this innate ability. Like you think you can just take the ball from him and you can't. It's always kind of on a string and he's always has his kind of hips over the top of it, even when it's all the way outside. He just, I don't know. There's something special about seeing that. So that's the tool set that for me seeing it in person, I was like, oh, that's nice. That the mid-range pull-up. I have questions about his ability to finish at the rim consistently. I have questions about his ability to knock down shots from the outside. But the stuff that he does have is really interesting and unique. But I had two GMs that I talked to. One of them, I mentioned it back in Summer League. One of them mentioned or said to me that I think the Hornets are already regretting their pick. And I was like, I thought it was like being sarcastic. He's like, I'm dead serious. Like that was and it wasn't a shot necessarily at Brandon Miller. Because I think Miller played 2 games, so he had already played his second game, and you're like, because the first game was so bad.
Yeah.
But I also took a picture of J. Cole and Mitch Kupchak courtside during those 21 minutes, and they looked terrified watching Scoot Henderson. So it was definitely a buzz factor that felt very similar to Lillard's rookie year. It obviously is a major bummer because it was only 21 minutes. He was playing though like he had like the juice to kind of be a summer league MVP. Like that's the kind of
What do you have like
had
17-5
15 yeah 17-5 and 5 75
yeah
6
15-5 and 5 yeah it was like he was about to have a 30-point triple-double in summer
it was
league. Yeah, he was. And Sam Vecini pointed out on his podcast. Ton of crazy athletes on that Rockets team. It wasn't like it was these were bums.
That's the most obscene summer league athlete roster I've ever seen.
Yeah, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, like those are, like really really athletic defenders.
They're all big.
And long and all that. And he had no problem with Tari Eason. No. And Tari Eason is a pretty, he's young, but he's going to be a pretty darn good defender in the NBA. Yes. And Scoot didn't care about him. It didn't matter.
No. And so is Amen. Amen's 6'7" with super twitchy. And he likes to play defense. And he was having trouble with Scoot that whole first half.
I'm really excited about both Thompson twins. I'm not a big draft guy, so I can't say that I would dug into OTE film, but the little bit I watched them in summer league, I'm super excited about them. They look like really good basketball players.
They'll be league watch favorites along with the Blazers.
Yeah,
Blazers,
well, hold on, I don't know. Maybe next year. Might be a little early for the Blazers league pass darlings. They're destined to be league pass darlings in 2024 though.
They'll start their status this year.
Yeah, exactly. Start the campaign. It'll be like one of those things we get to March or whatever, and it'd be like, if you haven't been watching the Blazers, they might only have 17 wins, but they're about as fun of a 17 wins. And I'm like, well, I've watched literally every minute of their game, and
they lead the league in transition points and the worst 3-point shooting team in the league.
Yeah, it's do you like Jeremy Grant took 28 shots tonight? Just kidding. I love this stuff, y'all. I love it. I'm a natural born hater. Do you think, you mentioned the shooting with Scoot. Do you think that's the swing skill for him? Not threes, but just like pull up jumpers in general.
Yeah, that for me, that's it. Cause we only saw 21 minutes of it, but talking to his teammates in practice and stuff like that down in Vegas, his ability, and leading up to that, his ability to get in the paint and spray the ball is something. Look, Dame is very good, and I've asked him about this particular thing. You know the Damian Lillard drive, the inside hand finish, right to left split, get to the right hand. I asked him one time last year why he goes to the jump pass, like the driving layup. He commits a step early.
He goes all the way to the baseline. Yeah.
Yes, and I was like, why don't you rondo that? Why don't you keep that dribble alive and like collapse the defense a little bit more? He goes, I know that. He goes, like, he told me, I learned over the years that if I go up and I commit, I know 2 guys are coming to me, and it makes that pass easier.
And he's really strong. Yeah.
Yes.
Really
and he can take that impact because Dame's ability to pass, like, this isn't a knock on Damian Lillard. This is just like his skill set. How often do you see Dame whip a pass one-handed?
Yeah, he
never.
doesn't do the hook pass. Yeah, he doesn't really do the hook pass.
No, and he almost never passes one-handed, left-handed. Scoot is one hand, either side, cross-body, over the top. Like, his passing is more, this is going to sound kind of weird, but more Ben Simmons-y, where he gets his arms kind of extended away from his body and creates unique passing angles. His wingspan's about an inch longer than Dame's, but he just has like this kind of body manipulation that he does passing wise, where he creates angles better than most guys. Not even just Dame, but like as a creator. I don't think they got to show that at Summer League, so I think you're going to see a lot of that. The interesting thing to me is the shooting, because the free throw shooting was subpar, the pull-up stuff is subpar, the three-point stuff is subpar, and the rim finishing is subpar. So it's like he's got to find some upticks in there somewhere. And if you look, I did a write-up on him last week on my Patreon, is like how he stacks up against NBA teenage guards. For him to average 15 and 5, he'd be the 4th player in NBA history to do that.
Yeah, it's very rare. Exactly.
It doesn't happen.
even just 5 assists for a rookie lead guard is pretty rare.
Yeah.
It is a select group. There's only been 2 Blazers in history who've averaged 6 assists as rookies. Kelvin Ramsey and your boy Damian Lamont, Ollie Lillard Sr. So it is not something that happens. That was 1981, and then again in 2012. So it's not like it happens often. Rookies just like they don't get that many options. The playmaking's not there, all that stuff. Like, yeah, for me, if Scoot, I don't care about 3-point shooting early. It'll eventually be a big deal for him. That will eventually, that's the way the league works.
Let me see the process.
Right. But
that's what I want to see.
If he can make pull-ups, like if he can make 17 footers, because he's gonna be able to get back past the first guy. And if he sees a lot of drop, right? Like if they're like, shoot it. Who cares? Like shoot it. If he can shoot from 17, it changes the way you have to cover him. You have to come up 2 steps higher. And Scoot might be that good that a step and a half is a difference, right? Like if you can't camp truly in the paint, but you have to camp a step and a half out of the paint, boom, that's layups or that's playmaking, right? Because 2 feet in the paint, a bunch of attention, he's a natural passer, all those things. Yeah, for me, the pull-up shooting. If he's for the swing skills like that mid-range, he's going to take a lot of them. He loves that shot from what I've seen. And if he starts bricking them, they're going to let him keep shooting it. That's how it works. And efficiency doesn't really matter too much as a rookie. But like you said, the process matters.
Yes. It's like the full squirrel moment. I was diving into Josh Giddey earlier. A friend of mine asked me kind of like where Giddey kind of sat and how excited I was with the Thunder. I was looking at him about a month ago, and I had a pretty good idea of where he sat with some things. Like he's a poor 3-point shooter. He's a subpar finisher at the rim. He's like 99th percentile in volume, short mid-range, like pull-ups.
Little floater range.
Yeah. And he's in the 88th or 87th percentile in finishing. So it's like he can't really finish for a guy who's 6'8" at the rim. He can't shoot it at all. But by God, when he gets but when he gets that in-between range, he takes them and he makes them. And it's like, and that's the thing. Scoot's 6'1", 6'2". Like, does he go full Tony Parker? Like, does he get a floater? Does he get a pull-up, a little push shot? Like, there's got to be some like weird. Look, we have Anthony Simons with a running hook. You've got Trendon Watford with a push shot. Like, this is the place. Drew Eubanks is throwing hooks. Like, this is the place to develop weird intermediate 10-foot shots. So if he's got it in his bag, like, let's see how that shakes out.
Let's talk Shaedon Sharpe in the second segment. Join us there, won't ya? Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen, with the NFL season right around the corner, FanDuel's got a great offer for you. If you place a futures bet on FanDuel right now on a Super Bowl winner in August, you can get bonus bets back every time that team wins all regular season long. Pick any team to win the Super Bowl. Before the season starts, futures bet who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. And every victory they rack up throughout the year, you'll get free bonus bets. You can use those bonus bets on things like spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA. Start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. All right, still chatting with Danny Marang. You heard him on 1080 Fan. You heard him on Jacked Ramsays. Talked all about Scoot in the first segment. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the other youngster. Shaedon looked tired at Summer League. He looks like a guy who maybe wasn't in the best basketball shape. I think my read on Shaedon Sharpe's Summer League appearance is that you can't read it as a positive, but you do not necessarily have to read it as a negative. I didn't think he looked very good, and I generally don't think it matters. Where do you sit on what we saw on like our first glimpse of quote unquote year 2 Shaedon Sharpe?
Shaedon's like 4 rim finishes, dunks, blocks, all of those things in game 1 were 5 feet in front of me. And he showed more emotion in those 4 or 5 plays than he showed maybe all of last year combined. I asked him after that game, like, hey, seemed to show a little more emotion there. Is a little something different? And he cracked a big smile. I was like, you think so? You think so? And, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, no, he did. And actually, I thought in that game, even though his shooting percentages were down, I liked his decision-making, his thought process. Like, Shaedon last year was so, I don't want to say afraid, but timid. Like, he did not feel like he belonged early in the season.
He was thinking the game a lot. He was thinking the game a lot.
He had the game against Maccabi Ranana where he caught a lob early in the first quarter. and just skied. And that was when everybody got to see him, and it went, oh, that. I asked him after that game, was that kind of like a you can do this moment? Because he was out there with, Terrence Jones and Norris Cole, like NBA dudes were on the floor. So it was like grown men, which he had never really played against,
Maybe CBA, Chinese Basketball Association dudes. But in any case.
But yes, again,
pros
adults. That are like adults with like strong bodies. Like his first ever NBA game was against Kawhi.
Yeah.
Like going up against those guys had to be like, this is a little different. And after going from, EYBL to that's a different world, right?
Yeah.
But when that switch did flip, you saw it, and you saw it towards the end of the year, and you saw it in flickers throughout the season. The skill set is there. It's going to be processing power, decision-making, and refining the little things like the footwork. You were great early in the season pointing out he's got his hands down when if he's not catching in the pocket, he's too slow to get to that. The triple threat stuff, put that away, like catching on the move, getting downhill, knowing who you are. And to be honest, most guys aren't Damian Lillard when they come into the league, where they have sat there and watched every single possession of their career and know it to a T. I need to do X, Y, and Z to succeed. These guys they're just preternaturally talented, and they're running on that when they're 18, 19, 20 years old. Scoot might be a little bit different with a little bit of G League push and some pro development behind him.
He played pro ball. Yeah, exactly.
But it's still not the same. So now that Shaedon has that underneath his belt, I expect to see a lot more out of him this year. And it's going to be interesting to see when, where, how he picks his moments and how aggressive he is. Because that's the thing for me. It's not necessarily skill set stuff. It's tighten the bolts down, and it's not even IQ stuff. It's the seriousness. And not that he didn't take it seriously, but it needs to ratchet up every year for you to take the necessary steps. I don't think he's a guy who's lazy or doesn't work. It's just how hard do you hit the tape? How hard do you understand?
You learn how to work. You learn how to work.
100%.
He probably thought he was working hard. And then he probably found out he wasn't.
And said the same thing. Remember, we had the serial killer story back in the day with Beckner. Most of these guys don't know the difference. And honestly, it's going to sound weird. Shout out to Dame for doing the Formula Zero camp, because that's what they're trying to teach those kids down there, is how to what it actually takes to work like a pro. Because what's missing nowadays in development, there's no big man camp. There's no pro level preparatory camps that you go to anymore. It's all shoe circuit stuff. So it's that part of the game is missing. So that's what I'm looking forward to see from Shaedon this year.
Yeah, I for me, I'm hoping the processing speeds up with the skill, because it really, he got so much better in a hurry when he got the ball in his hands, but he's not going to have that role again. And in some ways it's easier. It's more decision-making, right? It's more stuff, because you come down, pick and roll, read, defense, second line of defense. There's more stuff, but it's pretty simple when you're as talented as him to say, so I just get the ball and try to get past him. It's but
and it works 70% of the time.
Yeah, I'm blown by Rudy Gobert in the final 4 minutes of a game in Minnesota, where then the franchise was like, you can't play anymore, kid. You have to stop playing, which sucks. Let him play. It's in some ways that role, not the actual stuff you do, but that role is just it's so obvious, right? It's I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to dribble across half court. Someone's going to come set a screen for me, and I'm going to try to get to the rim and do what I do. And I'll read and react from there. For me, it's the processing when he's not the primary, when he's even the tertiary guy, right? When he's the third option, when it's okay, they're running a dribble handoff on the other side. If it comes to me, I have to shoot or attack. And it's every time. And it's, how are they going to close out on me? Where is that second pass? Because when he had the ball in his hands at the end of the year, he passed. Prior to that, he had no idea how to pass the ball. He just drove into trouble and shot it. And he's really talented. So sometimes it worked out really well, because he's a good basketball player.
I know it's easy to I know it's easy to say you take from Hall of Famers, but did you get a chance to see the Havisher article where he was talking about Dwayne Wade's weird ability to space the floor with taking, I think it was 11 threes in a season?
Yeah. Dwayne Wade doesn't shoot, but here's why he has
opponents are still covering it out of the 3-point line.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Shaedon obviously can shoot the living hell out of the ball for the 3-point line, but the difference being like, what if you also have to worry about him making the right back cut because you turned your head? And now you've got a guy who's got 12 feet of verticality that you have to worry about cutting on the back door. Like, those are the kind of things of like, yeah, 3-point gravity is great, but like cutting gravity is super cool too. And having vertical gravity is cool. It's like exploring those different planes. And God, I sound like a giant nerd right now, but like, those are the kind of things that like, that's more what I'm looking for. Like, let's see Shaedon average like 22 shots a night. Like, no, like, let's understand the functionality, the who, what, when, where, why stuff. The other stuff will come.
Yeah. If his goal should be to be a functional NBA player, not necessarily any specific thing. Okay, you need to average 17 and you need to shoot 38% from three. And it's like functional, meaning I can plug you in and you can just go. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be what he was at the end of the year where it's like, okay, you could be the guy and you get unlimited shots and you get all, all this. It's like just functional, right? Like, hey, if Dame's on the roster, you're going to play some minutes with him. If he's not, and they're like super young and messy, which they're going to be, if they're young, they're going to have some growing pains. It's like, see if we can get you into spots where, okay, Ant is doing something over here. You make a good cut into space. They don't even give you the ball, but that cut opens up the backs, like that kind of functional NBA stuff where he just gets it. I think that's, to me, that's the growth for him. Let's talk about some other guys. I want to ask you about Jabari Walker and Rayan Rupert and some other folks. That's what we'll do in the third segment. Join us there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting with Danny Marang. You were a pretty big Jabari Walker believer last season as a youngster. I think he struggled a little bit the way that maybe a 20-year-old 57th pick, second round pick in the NBA draft might. Very believable. He looked good in summer league. I thought he had a really nice showing in Vegas. What are your expectations for him, both like role wise and what's he going to do?
My expectations for him haven't really changed. I still think he's going to be a guy who has a 10-year career. Like, he's just like, he has a bankable skill set. He can rebound the ball and he knows where to be. Like, he's even like as a kind of a scatterbrained rookie, he wasn't lost. Now, he missed shots or he failed to grab a rebound or things like, he did more than Tony Snell, like in the right spot, but like sometimes it didn't always go well. He has quieted his jump shot quite a bit. Like, if you watched him at Summer League, he had a very distinct 2-piece jumper coming out of Colorado. It's a lot smoother. It's not the same jumper as Klay Thompson, nor the same results, but I feel like the cadence is kind of the same. It's a lot of a dip, smooth, higher release. When he misses, it's still bad. And he gets very frustrated, but I kind of like seeing that from him. But he is a smart kid, man. This is a guy who day one was like, I'm going to be a role player in the NBA and I'm going to star in my role. Like, the kid has never had any ideas of grandeur. Like, I'm going to be a star in the NBA. And it's not him settling. It's just him recognizing what was going to be his role in 4 years anyways.
And I think there's a Channing Frye thing about this where he says 80% of the league is role players. He's like, so like if you think you're one of the top 20% in the league, go for it. But 80% of the league is role players. So like, if you want to play and you want to get paid millions of dollars, be the 80%. Like, figure it out early on that you're going to be that guy. Because Channing Frye was top 10 pick, right? Like, and he was like, oh,
highly lauded out of Arizona.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I'm that's not who I am. Like, once he got to Phoenix and was like, oh, I'm going to be a stud as a role player. He was pretty good in his New York and Portland visits. But once he got to Phoenix, it was like, yeah, I get it. This is how I'm going to stick in the league. I'm going to really shoot it. I'm going to play 100%. Forever. I'm never going to be even one of the 6 best players on my team, but I'm always going to be one of the 9 best players on my team, and I'm going to play forever because of it. And I think that's Jabari has that to me. And you mentioned the bankable skill. He's got to get a second thing he can do. The
3-point shooting is the thing he's trying to do. Like, he's putting in the work on that. So if that comes around, he's a 36% 3-point shooter.
League average is right at 36.
If he bumps that up to 37, 38, then he's definitely around for a really long time. Yeah.
I think even like, is Jabari Walker going to be a good defensive player in year 2? It's a pretty safe bet. No.
Like, I will tell you this though, the Blazers, they had to make a decision basically between him and Trendon Watford, and they chose him. So not solely, but because of the defensive stuff. Like
certainly he has more upside than Trent Watford defensively.
And that's where kind of that decision comes down to is like, if we're going to pick one of these guys, because they kind of had to, like young power forward with like different skill sets, but like, what's the thing that they need from that position? They need somebody who can probably defend a little bit more. It's like, even if you're going forward and Dame's gone, it's still Scoot. Remind me again. Is he any bigger than Damian Lillard? No. So you got to have guys with some like legitimate size who can move and play defense and rebound. And I think that's kind of why they ended up going down that pathway.
I would have just kept Trendon because he's fun and weird. And
he's I love the kid.
And he's not going to, and he
might be the vibes commander of the locker room right now. Last year.
I don't think they had to make a choice. They did make a choice, and they felt they had to make a choice. But Trent Watford can just play center. It's fine. You're going to play Moses Brown 20 minutes at center. We'll just
they got taller.
We'll talk in December. But I know what you did. Yeah. Speaking of Blazers forwards, what do you make of Kris Murray? Is Kris Murray going to play? Like, it kind of depends on what the roster looks like, right? But
camp is going to be really weird. Like,
yeah, it is.
Murray is really interesting to me. Again, that kid is so smart. That's something that they are like definitely targeting, is they are getting kids who are smart. Like, you talk to these guys. If you've seen a single interview with Keegan, Kris is number one, a twin, but like their personalities are very, very nearly the same. And they're both very intelligent, not only in basketball sense, but like in a worldly sense. Like they don't get bothered by stuff. They understand. They just kind of, I should just say he just kind of gets it. Basketball wise, he has a incredible feel for spacing. He can feel when, like you said, like when you make that back cut, if he's on the backside of the play, and even though Shaedon maybe isn't supposed to make that back cut there, but man, it's a good back cut, and the defense, oh crap, they go with it, and it opens up that space, and now Scoot's filling into that, and Kris is this kind of guy who, as soon as he sees Shaedon take that one step, he's already floating above the break. Like if he sees that somebody's floating to the corner and that he's already in, he's already cutting through. Like I watched so much of his tape. It's kind of funny. I had the hip surgery last year, and I watched all of Keegan Murray's games last year, and I got very familiar with him, and I got to see Kris as well. This year, he took that step, scored like crazy, but the thing that I took away was, number one, he's the most left-handed player I've seen since Zach Randolph. He will not go right. He will drive right, and it will come back left. It is Isaiah Thomas in power forward form. It is insane. But beyond that, like he has that spacing feel that I feel like that's something you can learn, but it's almost something you can't teach.
Yeah, it feels really an interesting thing with young guys, right? Like, certainly playing a lot of NBA minutes, guys have a better feel. It's like why young point guards usually are bad, because the feel is a thing you have to develop. It takes youngsters, particularly point guard is the hardest position to learn in the NBA. Yeah. It's a lot of reads. You can get better. Your feel can get better, right? Mm-hmm. But there are certainly real advantages from having it early. I think Trent Watford had a really good feel on both ends. He just has slow feet and he can't jump. So the feel on defense, being in the right spot on defense started mattering a lot less when
you can't get there.
Yeah, when you can't get there. I know where I'm supposed to be, but I'm not. And if I do get there, I'm not going to meet him at 12 feet. So
Murray's got the tools too. Like he's legit 6'8" with a solid reach. He's smart. He's not like crazy athlete, but he'll get up with you a little bit.
And they got him on the move a little bit in summer league, and he looked good on the move. And I like that. Like he's not a total standstill guy at his size. Like he caught it, going to his strong hands, but he looked good going to his strong hand for sure. Something I noted right away in the very, very little I've seen of him. Rayan Rupert, the other rookie, let's get him in the mix. There's like no room for him, but
he's going to probably play like 40 minutes a night with the G League. Like he's going to
crush in the G League too. He's going to wreak havoc.
So the very first play I ever saw of him diving into the tape, checked in for the New Zealand Breakers. I can't remember the team now, but Tom Abercrombie, the longtime NBL vet. I think he had a cup of coffee in the NBA on some summer league rosters, but old savvy vet, and immediately breaks his ankles with a back cut. gets him to fall asleep, fakes like he's coming up. You know, they ran kind of a Warriors-esque elevators play, but he completely broke it off, went back door, and one foul. And I was like, oh, he's that kind of kid. Okay. And then fast forward through the game, and I saw him get like 3 deflections, a steal, and take like 4 rebounds from being not boxed out. And I went, oh, that's what they see.
Physically, he looks like you get why he's intriguing. Super long arms, moves well for being big. Like I did not think
he's a big kid.
I did not think he was going to be that big. Like in Vegas, this is the first thing I said. I was like, oh, I thought he was going to be way more string beanie. Like he's not. He's skinny, but he's not like tiny, right? Like he's not John Butler Jr. He's like filled out. He's much more of a wing than a guard.
Yeah, he's probably he's teetering on like the wing forward.
Agreed. Yeah. What Brad Stevens calls swings. He might be a swing. I can't imagine he's an NBA contributor this year, but
I'd be surprised.
I'll go to a Remix Game or 3 and check him out. I'm excited to watch
him and Baji are the 2 guys that I'm very excited to watch, kind of like their development paths with the G League. But Rupert's got some tools. It's the basketball experience stuff. Folks around Batum have said that Batum couldn't speak higher of the kid. I had somebody tell me that
I will say Nicholas Batum was barely
was the worst summer league player. Yes,
and then he won a
starting job 2 months later
in training camp. So there's still maybe Rupert's going to show up. He's your starting small forward. There's the solution.
He has the size.
18. He's 18.
He's a kid too. He is.
The future's here. The future is here. So I don't know if he's going to be follow that path, but I am intrigued by him. I just I'm gonna have to watch him wear a different jersey for most of the intrigue, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Season. But again, like I said, the Blazers will be down at camp in Santa Barbara this year, and it's gonna be really interesting to see. Like, there's not really like any battles per se, but like who's 8, 9, 10? Like those on the back, like those are gonna change throughout the season, especially when if a trade comes. But like who's there? Like who shows it early, it's harder to get it later than it is to lose that spot later. So who kind of grabs those last kind of, and even 11, like that could sneak in, like those kind of battles are I think the most intriguing thing outside of like the Scoot, Shaedon, Dame storylines this season.
Yeah. The forward spots are a mess. Like who, like, I think you could pencil Matisse Thybulle in for playing a bunch of those minutes, but like, where does Nas play? Does Chris Murray play at all? Probably not early, but eventually, yes, they're going to want to see him play a little bit. Jabari Walker's probably going to play a bunch right away. What do they do with those center minutes after they realize that playing Moses Brown 20 minutes a night is an absolute mess? We'll see.
He is really big.
He's absolutely that. He's absolutely gigantic. He's probably a nice guy. He's probably
great
a nice
kid when
guy.
I could talk to him back then.
Yeah, probably a really polite fellow. I'm rooting for him, I guess. I just think he's not very good, and it's gonna be tough for him. They're gonna find out because they've cleared a lot of room from a man Moses to play basketball, and we'll see what happens.
That's what this is all about after all.
Yeah, I spent 35 minutes of this show so I could be mean to Moses Brown in the closing seconds. This is why you tune into the podcast.
August, baby.
Yeah. Okay. Danny, can I convince you to stick around for one more?
Absolutely.
One more episode? All right. Come back. Monday's show. Danny Marang's going to join us for that episode. Tell your friends about this podcast. I appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.